Philip, hear our plea. Get rid of Tiernan Lynch. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the final whistle here on YouTube and Drive 105's Match Night Live. My name is Dee Kern. I'm with Stephen McClelland and Michael Kennedy. And we've just seen Henry Riley save the blushes of Derry City Football Club down in Waterford, who looked like they were on. They won their first game of the season after 16 attempts of trying. But will it save Tiernan Lynch's job? Relief or missed opportunity? Michael, Derry City rescue a point at the RSC, but 2-2 against Waterford without a win in 16. Does it still feel like 2 points dropped?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just, to be honest with you, it's saved his job for now. I don't expect him to be going anywhere after that last minute goal. To be fair to Waterford, and I will stick up for them a wee bit. I know they haven't won them, however, but I think they've only lost 1 or 2 games at home. You know, I know they've drawn the majority of their games at home, so it was never going to be an easy game. It was never going to be an easy 3 points, but you know, you're going down there thinking it's a must-win game. I think it was the worst game for the pressure Tiernan Lynch is under. It was probably the worst game to have. But the way they just capitulated in that second half, you know, and Waterford will be absolutely gutted. Like, you know, I think that's probably the best chance of getting 3 points. And Derry, it's very, very worrying. But to be fair to them, they went to the end and they got the equaliser. But it's extremely disappointing.
Stephen, last week you were quite critical of the squad selection going into the game against Drogheda United. Tonight he changed things around. First of all, he played a striker. He had Dippo up front, Santos and Duffy wide at either side, and Clark playing off the striker. But what did they produce in such little sustained control?
Well, it looked, as you said, the part of the team tonight, you know, but obviously because there's no consistency there, again, you're finding that Depot tends to find himself isolated up there. As you know, Clark drops too deep then, you know what I mean? I can count my hand the amount of times Depot maybe won the ball. There was other weeks you see him, he's won the ball, you know, and turn him. Maybe it's Waterford's good style of play tonight, don't get me wrong, that they weren't letting them get on the ball and get the release at all. Huffed and puffed, just another one of those nights where I can say that I'm numb. I'm a wee bit numb, to be honest with you. Don't get me wrong, they'll take the equaliser the 91st minute. I've never seen it coming, I have to say. I just thought Waterford controlled the game. We can't say we controlled that game tonight. That's the one certain thing anyway, because I'll tell you what, Waterford controlled it. Leading up after the Derry goal, it was all Waterford. They should have got their equaliser prior. And again, they come out that second half. They taught Derry a few football lessons, grit, determination. Something that we haven't seen that Derry team again tonight. Call it what you will. There was an element of luck about it. It was a lobbed ball on the back post in the 94th minute, and I'll give Riley credit. He seemed to tower above everybody else. But there was 3 centre halves standing. They'll be very critical of themselves that they didn't get that first one. But credit to Derry for the 1 point. One of those nights that I don't think fans will be there's still question marks, the big question marks.
Stephen, just what you just says about the 2 strikers there, I found it really interesting. And, you know, I just always try and put myself in the mind of a player. And, you know, I actually feel for Clark and Depot. I feel really bad for them, you know, and this comes from the manager because he doesn't know who he prefers out of them 2. You know, so they're going into every game, you know, not knowing who's starting. You know, they don't have the main number 9. Now, I'm not for 1 second saying that either of them have done enough to be the main number 9, but their mindset going into the game is, if I don't score in 60 minutes, I'm coming off. You know, and that there, like what that does to your confidence, and not only that there, they not even start one of them in a game. That there is a manager telling you, I don't trust you. That out of the 2 strikers that he has opted not to play one of them, you know, and leave both of them sitting on the bench. Me as a player, would just shatter my confidence, you know, and I would just think this manager does not trust me one bit. I have to score in 60 minutes or I'm coming off, and it's just going to be the same thing week in, week out, and that's what we're seeing. And I honestly feel sorry for them. But again, you know, I don't think either of them have done enough to be the main number 9, but I feel sorry for them.
It's actually twice they've done that, and it was both against Drogheda as well, which is quite I would say disgraceful, if I'm being completely honest. When the team sheet came out this evening, and I saw that Waterford were playing with 7 defensive players, and I thought, jeepers, it's nice that this is happening at a home ground that isn't Derry City, you know, well, it's Celtic Park or Brandywell. And I thought maybe they're going to set up not to lose, but how much credit does Waterford deserve, particularly for their pressing whenever they were 1-0 down, Mickey?
Yeah, the massive, you know, they look like the team that were in Derry's position, you know. They didn't look like the team that hadn't won a game this season, but, you know, they've done their homework on Derry. They know, playing, like we've seen it with Galway the other week. Galway come up and we're happy enough to sit in with a defensive type of team and press when they could. They know that Derry City's not going to break them down. You know, and obviously they did get their goal through Dos Santos tonight, but apart from that, they were comfortable. You know, Derry didn't create much at all. Like, you know, they knew, like, Derry's not going to break them down in that easily. And they would get chances, because there's one thing about that Derry team, you know, and especially we know Winchester in there, like, they give up chances. And if you won that midfield battle, you've got a chance against that Derry City team. You know, so I think they were set up brilliantly. I think they just ran out of legs towards the end. You know, it was such a they would be absolutely fuming at the goal that they conceded, the Riders goal towards right at the end. But I thought they set up brilliantly. They set up nothing too dissimilar to the way we've seen previous teams. You know, that I mentioned Galway there, the way that they've set up against Derry, and Derry just can't cope with it.
Yeah, and we've seen that in the first half in particular. And Stephen, I was thinking about you during it, because Derry were trying to pass it in their own defensive third and quick pass and short patterns. And there was a moment where Adam O'Reilly got caught on the press, and it presented Lonergan with a big chance. It happened more than once where Eddie Beach even had to get on the panic. But Eddie Beach, I think, at times kept us in that game.
He did, and you know, again, it stems back to they're letting you have that ball because they know Derry's going to make a mistake, and we know as sitting on the crowd, sitting like, you know, commentating, we know that mistake's on them, and if that doubt's with us, the doubt must be there. But fair play to Eddie Beach. I think it was one with Paragamon and Noonan as well had a chance, but I think there was a foul on there. Anyway, but it was three clear cut chances that you thought, my God, we've got away with ones there. But to be fair, they were down Derry Beach's throat, a couple of them, you know, and they didn't really have to go sides to side. But again, it was effective. He had to do it. You know, saying about 7 defensive players, but it didn't look at times. Waterford seemed to get the supporting players up. You know, when we done it, we weren't getting supporters players up. They seemed to be getting the boys up the field. And again, another in the box. They must be just saying, get the ball under your feet in the box and just try and play and try to pass it in the box, because Derry will give you a penalty, you know. And it's while that we as Derry fans are getting put up against these teams, that they now know how to play against us, that knowing we're not going to break them down. You know, they're going on with this mentality now. It's Derry's coming tonight. We get 1 or 2 chances and goal. There's a chance we'll beat them, which is it's crazy now.
They finished the first half with sustained pressure. So it's 1-0 Derry City going on at half-time. Second half, they come out, Michael, and they play a bit more direct. And whenever they are playing direct, did you feel that they were exposing the space that Derry City were leaving behind in the defence?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, because Derry look like a team that don't know how to press properly. You know, they don't know. It's, you know, when they are going so direct, and I always mention Winchester because he does it so well, and I can't hit home enough about how well he protects that back four. But the gaps in midfield is unbelievable. You know, and even if Derry won that first contact, it's the teams that are picking up the second ball. You know, and we've seen Waterford do it tonight. They're more than happy to be direct against that Derry team. And if they don't win the first contact, they're going to win the second. They're going to get the second contact. You know, and it's just how it's so basic. You know, just for when you're coming out, you know, you were going at 1-0 down or 1-0 up. Sorry, you know when you come out, this Waterford team's giving everything for 10-15 minutes. Get the boys in, get them compact, and let them throw everything they have at you, weather that storm, and then play your way back into the game. You know, it's football 101. It's so basic football that they just don't do. But I spoke about it when we were on. We done the last game we done. Mm-hmm. There's a real lack of leadership in that team. Now, I don't think it's necessarily personnel. I think it's just they just don't want to do with that manager. You know, and I don't want to come across as like I hate him or anything like that there, but you know, there's leaders in that team, but we just don't see it. You know, and you look at Mark Conley last year, and I can't speak highly enough of him. We could hear him from the stand, the organisation. When the times last year when they were up against it, you could hear him screaming, "Get in, sit in for 5, sit in for 5-10, just weather the storm, and then we'll go again." And it's just they don't have that at the moment.
At 1-1, Tiernan Lynch changes the ship with Dummigan coming on and taking it off the Santos. And then at 2-1, panic sets in. Ryla, Markey thrown on, which felt a bit reactive. But my point is here, Mikhail, is the concern that Derry's in-game management keeps becoming reactive rather than proactive.
So you've had the nail on the head. You know, and any coaching badge course, you'll tell you, you know, be proactive, not reactive, and it's just waiting for something to happen before you're making your changes. You know, when it got to 1 each, you knew Waterford were going to get their second. You know, it was the only thing, and it was the only thing we could see coming. You know, change it then, and even then, you know, the changes that he makes is just the times are just baffling. And you know, I know he takes Mickey Duffy off, and we end up getting a goal, but you're sitting there, you're going, why are you taking him off? If there's one player on that pitch that can create something, that can do something, maybe Clark as well, but Clark came off that.
Yeah,
Or
Clark
no,
came off.
Clark came off as well, or came on, sorry. But they take him off, Mickey Duffy, that the one player that can create something out of nothing, it's just baffling. And I'm not having this managing minutes and all that there. That's nonsense. You're in. I was going to say you're trying to challenge for a league title, but you're in a relegation battle, if you like it or not. Play your best players.
Mm-hmm.
Like Stephen, again, we were listening to Dermot Luddy at the end of the game, and the last words we heard online was, "Philip, hear our plea: get rid of Kieran Lynch." Now, are you in this camp?
You know what? If they've lost the players and if they've lost their respect within that dressing room, I think we all have to be, in a sense. Do you know what I mean? It's not up to us. The player power will eventually maybe kick through. Somebody will take notice. It'll be curious about, I always go back to bums in the seats in Celtic Park next week. I think it's going to be strange for us going to Celtic Park next week with such a vast place in front of us, Steve, up in that box. And Miguel, you'll be there the following Monday. I think it's going to be strange because I thought it was strange anyway, because of the first match of the season, we've had loads of people, Shamrock Rovers, come to town. The buzz was on. There's going to be a very much different buzz about Celtic Park, trust me, next Friday night.
You seen it with the fans when they scored that equaliser tonight. There's nothing better scoring a last minute goal in football. When the camera went to them, there wasn't one of them celebrating.
There was 24. I think it counted 24 fans down.
Stephen, not one of them celebrated when the camera cut them. And that's like I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But I don't blame them either. Imagine paying that money to travel down there, probably having to take a day off work. The 24 and fair play to them, but it's just. That's not. I seen Mickey Duffy come off that pitch tonight. The camera was on him, and he just looked defeated. And that's your club captain. And honestly, I just felt for him. I really, really felt for him tonight. He just looked like. He looked lost. He looked done, and that there is really, really worrying to me.
And do you know what? I thought when the match started, I thought he had a spring in his step. There was he did have that wee, I seen it on him that we see every week. He passed a few players, a few intricate passes. It was working. And then there you get the goal. And again, you just kind of things just disintegrate in front of you. And it's as if they say, right, we've got our goal now. Waterford come at us. But Waterford know when they sit back like that there, that Waterford know they're going to score. We know they're going to score. We kind of knew deep down that there was going to go 2-1 up. But then that's just the negative mentality of the way we're at the minute. I think everything's kind of doom and gloom. And this is the point where I think we're struggling now. Where do we see the positive? How do we get out of this hole? How do we, get us? How do you talk about shaking yourself down for the next match again? But how do you do it after that now?
But Stephen, a good leader motivates people. And a good manager isn't necessarily someone who's excellent and tactical or anything like that. There, it's that man manager. He's getting boys that's going to play for him. It's going to play for him, and it's going to give everything for him. And I don't see that with the City team at the minute.
Well, Tiernan Lynch did say in the build-up to the game, and I'll quote here, "If I wasn't confident I could turn this around, I would be walking away." Are you expecting him to walk away?
I'm not expecting him to walk away.
Absolutely not. When was the last manager you ever seen walk away that's sitting with a potential payout or whatever? And that's speculation, obviously. But he ain't walking away.
That's his prerogative too.
Yeah, but I wouldn't walk away. Absolutely not. And I have no doubt deep down that he believes that he can turn it around. But this is a results-based industry, and the money they've spent, they shouldn't be turning anything around. This wasn't a turnaround season. This was a step forward season. Last year was the turnaround. This year was the kick on. So we're back to square one from when he came in. And I listen. I don't know him personally. That's why I'm trying not to be too critical. But when you listen to him speak in his interviews and stuff, he doesn't motivate me. And I think he hasn't managed the fans well. We all know with Derry City fans that they can be tough, and negative when things aren't going their way. But if Derry City fans see a team giving everything, they will stand up and applaud them no matter the result. And we've seen it previously in every single season. When they see a team giving everything, they'll stand up and applaud them. And as I say, I think it's gone too far, to be honest.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave it there. I want to thank Stephen and Michael for taking the time to hang out with me tonight. It's now going on the 10 past 10 here in the Northwest. This is now obviously on demand on YouTube. The three of us will be together on Monday week when Shelburne are the visitors to Celtic Park. Before that, Eddie Sadak will be with me and Stephen for the St. Patrick's Athletic game, which Stephen McClelland has just blessed himself in the hope that we get something. Derry City have fallen down to 6th, and thanks to the draw, it now prevents Galway or Sligo either tying on points or jumping ahead of them, which would have made things much, much worse. What's your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen? Do you think Tiernan Lynch will remain in position for next Friday? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you like this program as well to help drive the algorithm so it gets shared about, and share it yourself too across social media. My name is D. Kern. We will catch you next Friday on Drive 105's Match Night Live from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. when we'll be in Celtic Park for St. Patrick's Athletic versus Derry City. Good night, good luck, and enjoy your weekend.